Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our first Town Hall Thursday of the year. We are excited to have you guys back and just share a couple updates with you all about what we plan to do throughout the 2023 year. We wanted to make sure that we stay consistent with our town halls, though you will see we did move them to Thursdays instead of Tuesdays. So hopefully that wasn't too much of an inconvenience for you all, our followers and our supporters, but we will be here for the long haul and we're excited to continue to update you all on a bi-weekly basis to let you all know what's going on in and around District 43. Today, we are joined by Stephanie Wilchfort, who is the president of the Brooklyn Children's Museum, the one and only Assemblymember Brian Cunningham, and of course, our hostess with the mostest, Doriel Larrier of Learn to Grow You. Again, I just want to say thank you to you guys for all your support. We are excited to get these town halls going, and I'm going to bring on Doriel Larrier to do some introductions. My name is Naomi Ritter, and I am the Director of Special Projects for Assemblymember Brian Cunningham and Assembly District 43.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another Town Hall Now Thursday. Today's conversation is going to be, of course, as Naomi said, sort of updates. It's the beginning of the year. We're starting out fresh. Those people who have set resolutions and maybe you've broken them, but we are keeping them right here. And so we're going to be joining on our session on our town hall with Stephanie Wilchfort of the Brooklyn Children's Museum and, of course, our own Assembly member, Brian Cunningham.
Stephanie, how you guys doing?
Hey, everybody. Hi, Doriel. Hi, Assembly member.
So good to see you. It's been a few weeks since the inauguration.
Yes, it was such a beautiful event. I just want to say that I felt like that event really reflected our community. It really reflected the district. It reflected the diversity of the district. It felt like all the people who keep the district strong and are real civic leaders, really civically engaged here, were there kind of, and I hope you felt it. All of our hands were behind your back, kind of pushing you forward. Everybody was just so happy to be there.
Well, it was exciting to be there, one, because it was the first time we had an event in that space, the new auditorium. But really exciting because, the Brooklyn Children's Museum, we don't tell you the history, is the nation's first children's museum. Can you tell us more about that storied history of it being right here in Crown Heights?
Yes. So Brooklyn Children's Museum was founded in 1899. We've always been on the corner of St. Mark's Avenue and Brooklyn Avenue. And when we were founded, we were kind of disruptive, right? For two reasons. The first reason is because we were the first museum for families. And, at a time when museums were very much like look, don't touch places where you just walked in and looked at stuff. And the second reason is because we're a museum founded in a community at a time when most museums were being founded on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan or on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. We were founded here in the middle of a residential neighborhood to serve the residents of Central Brooklyn. And we really hold that obligation in our hearts today. More than half of the people we serve, more than half of the 300,000 people we serve are from Central Brooklyn, from Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville, Crown Heights, East New York, East Flatbush, Prospect Lefferts Gardens, a little bit of Midwood, throw Midwood in there. And it's really a point of pride. It really feels great to be in the community that you're serving.
Well, it's amazing to have your leadership. I know that when I first became a staffer, much younger in my career, you were just starting your career at the museum as well as CEO. My wife, Stephanie Johnson Cunningham, often talks about the incredible relationship you guys share as well as some of the work you guys have done together about inclusion and diversity in spaces, particularly in Crown Heights community where there's so much, as you mentioned, diversity. But Stephanie, one of the things that I really admire about your leadership so far is like the capital projects you've invested in our museum. Our museum is clearly a children's museum, but it's so much more. Talk about the upcoming library projects coming right here in the heart of Crown Heights at the museum.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And by the way, thank you so much. This is like such a gracious introduction. And side note, Stephanie was like one of the first people I called when I took this job because I knew that she had so much knowledge. She is so brilliant at the work that she is doing. It is such important work. But on the capital front side, I'm glad you raised the library because that is the number one question I get from community members is what's the deal with the library? So a few years ago in 2017, The library on St. Mark's Avenue, which was in a leased building, it was not owned by the city, was sort of in a space where the mechanicals were failing. The city could not put money into it. It was really not in a good situation. We made an arrangement with the library to bring them into our space, which was built in 2008 and is a new space, and to raise capital money together in partnership to build a brand new state-of-the-art library for children and families, but also for adults, for job seekers, for people who need resources, right on the Brooklyn Avenue side of the museum. And construction started in 2019. There was a little COVID thing that delayed us, but we are slated to open in summer 2023 in just a few months. The library looks beautiful. Brooklyn Public Library has been an amazing partner, and I'm just I'm even more convinced that everything good that we do in our communities, all of the best community service we do is done in partnership, is done with our communities. In this case, the community gave us a ton of feedback about what they wanted in this library. We did meetings, we talked with Community Board 8, we had a lot of feedback from our neighborhood, and we were able to incorporate most of it in the plans. It was like kind of an amazing thing. But also that our two institutions, Brooklyn Public Library and Brooklyn Children's Museum, were really able to come together to advocate for resources. So this was not an underfunded project. We were able to get the money that we needed, but we did it together. We did it in partnership with our elected officials, including you and others. And we really were able to bring this to fruition. And I'm very excited. I know you're going to come and help us cut the ribbon this summer.
Big pair of scissors. I'm excited about this one, particularly because given just the literacy rate in our community, having access to a library, having access to a museum that brings people and young people particularly on a journey globally and panoptically about the worldview is really important. Stephanie, one more question I have for you, or two more questions rather, but the second to last one is about the actual Brooklyn project. I know that you've been holding very close to that project you guys are working on about a Brooklyn Time Machine. You guys have been the groundbreaking institution for so many great projects. The museum being one, the first one. Second time was this movie theater, now a library. Now you're telling the history of Brooklyn through an exhibition. Talk to us about that project coming up.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for this. So we are building a climbing structure, a physical climbing structure that will allow children and families to walk through stories of families who lived in Brooklyn in immersive spaces, doing activities, physically engaging with history. And you might ask, like, why is that important? You know, can't you just, aren't they learning history in their classrooms? And kids are learning history in their classrooms. We have amazing teachers in Central Brooklyn who are working so hard every day to build citizens and build amazing citizens. But a lot of kids learn physically. A lot of kids need different entry points to different subjects, including history. And so this is an opportunity to create another way of learning about history, a physical way. There's great research about embodied learning, how we learn using our bodies, and how we need that physical engagement to make stories real and to make information real. So this exhibit will take children and caregivers through the 500 years of Brooklyn, starting with the first peoples, the Lenape, and stories of Lenape, and really exploring the diversity of our borough. And the other thing that we're really looking at is how do we reconstruct narratives? How do we reconstruct history for our kids? This is something that we know academics are telling us we need to start doing. That history, as we have envisioned it, is a very frankly white male history, and the story of this country is the people who built it, and the people who built it is people who built the city, people who built this borough. Were not all white men. They were lots of different kinds of people, and so this exhibit gives us an opportunity to tell those stories as well.
I'm looking forward to that exhibition opening up and being there for the opening. Stephanie, before you go, tell us about some of the dynamic programs happening on the February or even at the end of January, ready for winter months, we want to be inside, but also in the space of learning and growing in community.
Yeah. Well, this weekend on Saturday, January 28th, we are having our big Lunar New Year festival. We hope you'll all come. We partner up with Chinatown Community Young Lions. We are one of the only spaces in Central Brooklyn where you can see the lion dance performed. We love these partners. There will be calligraphy classes. There'll be art making. There'll be all sorts of ways to celebrate the Year of the Rabbit, storytelling, music, dance. So please come. We're open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. It should be a beautiful day. In February, over public school midwinter break, we'll be hosting Black Future Festival. That is a celebration of Black cultures. We partner up with Ashe Dance Theater Collective to produce that week of programming. Again, art, music, dance, food. It's going to be a great week, and we'll be open all week. We'll be open Monday to Friday. Usually, many of our families know we're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. We will be open on Monday and Tuesday of that week because school is closed. And the last one I'll mention is on February 5th. We are hosting the Jewish New Year of the Trees called Tu B'Shvat. And we'll be doing environmental programming. We'll be eating tree fruits. We'll be testing out different things that grow on trees. We'll be doing planting programs. So that is in partnership with The Neighborhood, which is a Jewish cultural organization in Bed-Stuy. And we hope to see everybody there.
Well, I'm looking forward to being there. I hope I'm not too old to attend the Children's Museum, but looking forward to seeing you from all three of those events, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, and never too old.
Hi, here we go. I think I'm on now. That was a very amazing opportunity to hear all of the programming that's going to be happening with the Brooklyn Children's Museum. I actually, and this is just public the disclosure, that I've actually taken all these little notes about what you said so that when you and I have our own little chat after the member does his piece, that we can sort of continue this information, because I am an educator by trade. And so, of course, I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, like, how can I connect this with the scholars that I work with and share this information with my colleagues on a professional level, on a collegial level, and also as a teacher learner and a teacher educator. So I'm thrilled to see all of this cultural programming that reflects not only the history of New York, and when you're talking about the Lenni Lenape, and that's the fourth grade curriculum, which I do teach, I'm thinking, wow, it's amazing for a museum to have things that, even though when you said aren't students learning about sort of history and the history of their communities in class, I had to say, not as much as we need to. So I'm glad that we as educators and as families can also reach out to our local museum in order to find more information to support us. Okay. So the member is heading. Great. The member is heading out. I guess this is our time to chat. That's what it looks like.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So yes, I'm very, very excited that we are celebrating this with the first, I know this information, I know this fast fact, the first children's museum in the country, BCM, right? And
in the world, Doriel, in the world.
In the world. Let's correct that quote. Okay.
Right.
And so, and because I'm a staunch Brooklynite, born and raised in Flatbush, I'm very, very excited to say I am not only a person who has come as a child, but when my children were of age, which was really like 2, 3, I started bringing them to the Brooklyn Children's Museum. And then with other community groups, etc., it was our annual summer trip with my church. Shout out to Salem Missionary Baptist Church. So I brought them every year. And now to see it blossom and continue to do with the huge renovation that occurred a number of years ago. And so it's a whole new world. And I will use that. It is a whole new world. Yeah. And glad that some of the true to nature essence of the museum has not gone away, but you just expanded the work. So here's the little like thorn in my flesh.
Say it.
Thorn in my flesh. This conversation started a couple of years ago when we saw the first Black Panther movie. And it was the moment where, let me get the name right. Is this Killmonger? Is it Killmonger? I think it's Killmonger, goes into the museum, right? And sees the artifact and has a conversation with the curator. And the curator says, sort of like goes off to this spiel of, it's from this part of, the world. And he goes, well, no, it's not. Actually, I know where it's from. And she goes, oh, no, you're mistaken. Mm-hmm. And then it starts in this little diatribe. And it sparked a conversation for me. I had a conversation with some of my college mates who are curators and who do work at museums, because this was at the same time that a huge museum in New York had an article about not being able to find curators for a museum of African artifacts. And I got on my little platform and I said, how hard is it to find curators who are of color? And that was the whole conversation. And so as we're talking about museum and education here and what it takes to sort of live and walk the life of the exhibitions that you have, what is the pipeline? What is the pipeline? How does someone of many different hues get the opportunity to do this work? By basically telling their own stories.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for that. That is actually a very good question and a very thoughtfully asked question. I think there's a few points of entry where we're honestly failing, Doriel. One is letting people know that these jobs exist. So if you said to a child today, any child, you said to them like, oh, how do you think a museum is made? How do you think museum exhibitions are made? They don't really know. And a lot of kids just don't know that these positions are out there. They wouldn't think to look on our museum websites to pull down job opportunities. So that's one point of failure. The other point of failure is paying people fairly. We need to do a better job paying people fairly, paying living wages. You can't be a curator if you can't make a living doing it. And that is, to me, that's like a very straight line. That seems like the simplest thing that we could be doing. But it actually turns out to be really a big and challenging and thorny question. And then, of course, there's always the question of like making sure that there's access to museum education programs and that museum education programs are not so expensive that you just take a look at them and you say like, what? $75,000 so I can get a master's degree to make $21 an hour? What? That's crazy. The economics don't work.
Wait a minute. I have to say the math isn't mathing right there.
No, it is not. It does not. So that is why the pipeline issue is not because we don't have enough people who are passionate and capable and competent and could do this work with amazing energy and insight. The pipeline problem is because we don't pay people enough and we require degrees that are extremely expensive and don't pay for themselves.
Okay. All right. So I do have to say that there was in my travels on my educational journey that there's a college that's in New York that has coursework for museum education. I don't want to misquote myself, but I think, is it Bank Street College?
Yes, Bank Street College does.
There we go. Okay, right. And so I spent some time there. Shout out to Bank Street College. And I was like, wow, I think that's really interesting. Now, I'm not sure if there is it a partnership with Brooklyn Children's Museum over the years, or is it, do they have their own sort of like mini, building exhibits in, let's say, the Museum of Modern Art, the Museum of Natural History, things like that. So I'm not really sure. Maybe you can, provide some insight. But
let me say something that maybe is a little bit, not everybody will agree with this, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that you need a master's degree to do these jobs. And that's not to say that I encourage everybody to get a master's degree or to pursue education. It's personally fulfilling. It's almost always worthwhile. It almost always pays for itself in the long run. That I'm not saying don't go and get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. I'm saying I don't know whether we museum leaders should be requiring credentials for jobs that don't require those credentials. I mean, you can be extremely knowledgeable about a subject matter area that is adjacent to museum studies and not have a master's degree in museum studies, and that's totally okay. You can be extremely knowledgeable about quilting without having a master's degree in textile arts.
Nice.
And the thing that is being curated are quilts. Then let's think about what kinds of credentials we're requiring from people to curate some of that work. It doesn't always work. Like certainly in science museums, you do want curators who maybe have some subject matter expertise, but a lot of the cultural curation, I struggle with whether we should be for creating structures where people must have those sorts of credentials to help curate objects that are, can be curated without that sort of academic learning.
Totally understand. So actually, I just want to lift an acronym that is used in this work, and that is SME, and that's subject matter expert. Because some people may see or hear that and not really connect what that is. So subject matter expert, yes, if you're a quilter, and you are done it a long time and you share with other people, then of course you should be brought in as a consultant in order to at least provide information, if not necessarily be, curate some of the work or be able to speak to or invite people that who also do this work, whether it be nationally or internationally, or the history about it, right? So here's something that I always try to do. When I find out that there's something that, let's just say, is held for a selected few.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like the gap, which is the pipeline gap, where do you start? If you are a museum leader and you're saying that, do we really need, 20 years of museum experience in order to become or to get into the pipeline for museum leadership? There's only a couple of people who do that. But what do you need? Yes, you need passionate people and people who could very well be a subject matter expert. And so I'm always thinking, start with the end and then work backwards. So as you find people who come to the museum, and if families are saying, hey, like we really like reptiles, or my child has a fascination with that, then I'm sure, I just have this strong feeling that you have a tiny little, hey, if your child really likes that, then maybe they can come and sort of help be a, what is it? Herpetology? Is that it? Right?
We're not so fancy. We call them animal maintainers, but yes.
But I'm a teacher, so I'm like, show my little SME.
Hear you.
Right. But, because I've also, again, I brought my children there and I see when they go to the science room, right at the bottom of the ramp, like I know, right? And they are living with the snakes and the lizards and all that stuff, which I couldn't stomach. But there's such a fascination. And then as an educator, then we sort of bring our children home and they're like, okay, well, then that's it. But to sort of build in over time, because I'm not really sure what the capital plan is, and of course you can let us know, build in over time, like these learning steps, so that as people from elementary, middle, high school, and then of course partnering with colleges, which I'm sure would be a total buy-in.
Yeah.
If you're interested in education and you happen to like history or science,
So let me put in a couple of plugs. First of all, you're absolutely right. There is a continuum here that we have not well developed. And I'm not talking about we at Brooklyn Children's Museum. I'm talking about the field has not well developed this continuum, but has certainly not well developed this continuum in communities of color where frankly, there are relatively few physical, formal cultural institutions. And I just will throw out a statistic on that just to give some frame to this. In central Brooklyn, the neighborhoods of Crown Heights, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville, East New York, East Flatbush, Prospect, Lefferts Gardens, Midwood, a little bit Midwood, you throw it in there. Those group of neighborhoods have a population of about 1 million people, somewhere between 850,000 and 1 million people.
And that's more than,
Boston,
like the city.
Boston has 600,000 people. Central
Yep.
Brooklyn has 400,000 more people than Boston. It has more people than Denver. It has more people than Detroit. It has more people than, it has as many people as San Francisco. But how many physical, formal, cultural institutions does Central Brooklyn have? When you line them up with other cities of similar sizes. And that is just, a really stark, that's cultural equity right there. That is the cultural equity problem. And that also is the pipeline problem. Because in a lot of communities, there is not a museum. I'm not talking, like, not even just one museum. Every community should have multiple museums, and there certainly are not multiple museums within walking distance for every child in New York City, and that is magnified in lots of other places. So I throw that out as kind of like an adjacency to the pipeline question. So in terms of the continuum, the question you asked about a continuum of learning and a continuum of engagement with museum learning, there is at Brooklyn Children's Museum, we definitely have engagement programs for sort of like pre-K through, I would say, like grade 4. In middle school, the kids, we don't have a lot of programming, and the kids, I think, in the middle grades are also a little bit falling off a cliff in other ways. And, we can talk about that separately. I have middle grades kids, and that's a serious issue for the city. But then when we do have a very robust teen program where kids come in and we actually teach them to be curators, we teach them to build exhibits,
Right.
We teach them to do some of those things. And I will conclude this piece by saying I really think that program will yield in the next 5 or 6 years a lot of the people we need to be bringing into our institutions. Already, we've been able to hire at Brooklyn Children's Museum kids who come out of that program in all sorts of places at the museum. And I hope that, like, the Met is looking to our program and saying, oh, these are the kids we should be hiring. These are the kids who, when they graduate college, and almost all of them end up going to college, these are the kids who we should have in our museum working and curating our collections. And when I say that almost all these kids go to college, I really need to give them props and their parents props, because it's not so easy. And they are all from our community. They are all from our neighborhoods, and it's not so easy. So that is, like, we take that for granted a little bit, but these are the future. These kids are the future. And I'm really excited to see them here. And they give me life. They give me energy every day.
That's lovely. So I'll sort of make a final point, because this definitely is just the beginning of the conversation, because we need to have, a number of other conversations about this continuum, because as BCM is going through this beautiful metamorphosis. Let me sort of be scientifically aligned here. The life that it has lived before is not as great as the life it is going to be. Right. So if you want to use that analogy, it has been in a cocoon stage, even though it is, I'm going to use a little Beyonce here, like it's shown like bright like a diamond. Right. Yeah. But it has so much more glow to go. Somebody write that down. It is so much glow to go.
I'm putting that in proposals, funding proposals.
Just add my name to it. Okay. So, but right, it does. It has much glow to go. Because if you're going to keep BCM alive and keep it growing and really keep it reflective of the community that it sits within, you're going to have some part of what I saw at the Brooklyn Museum on Eastern Parkway, some of those exhibits that have reflected is it Kadir Nelson? Let me not misspeak. But some of the, let's say like the today's art of young
Yeah.
people, what some may call graffiti on one side, but is this the creative expression? I don't know if this is part of your proposal, but you might want to make it, but there has to be like some to keep those middle schoolers and those high schoolers, to keep them engaged. Because if you really want that pipeline, and you're saying that the young people are sort of falling off, once they sort of age out of the exhibits that live in BCM, what a great way to sort of keep them engaged and keep them empowered that, I can still go back, even though I was there when I was a toddler, preschool, or elementary school. I can go back because there's a space for me, because there's a place for me to grow and to continue to come to and live through and speak through. Like the Calypso, the steel pan that was at the inauguration, beautiful. The dancers that were there, amazing. BU, who was there, the percussion team, the drum team, fabulous. But would they ever walk back in Brooklyn Children's Museum in their age group? Not unless it was an adult event. So I'm excited. I'm excited to continue.
We have so much more to talk about, Doriel. I just like to talk with you forever.
There will be time. But today, this is our Town Hall Thursday. And of course, it is the moment that, the member gives updates. And so BCM happened to be part of the updates for this month. We will be back on next month with another slightly different type of a conversation, but one that is definitely critical to the residents of the community members of the 43rd District. And so we're going to welcome back Naomi Ritter in a moment. And Stephanie, it was such a pleasure to have you on our chat today.
I love this conversation. Thank you so much.
We'll be back. Have a good one.
Hey, Doriel. Thank you so much. That was such an exciting conversation. I really enjoyed listening. And then Stephanie, if you're still around, thank you for jumping in with us and just, giving us some insight on the career pathways to being a museum curator. It's always such an interesting conversation and one that probably should be prioritized a little more. So, and in that vein, I wanted to remind everyone that we will be having our next Arts and Culture Committee Task Force meeting in the district office on February 10th. I'm sorry, it's the date. It's going to be on January 31st. I'm looking at 5 different calendars at once. Next Tuesday, January 31st will be our next Arts and Culture Task Force meeting. These type of conversations around museum curating and career pathways to becoming a museum curator are definitely ones that we want to bring into the conversation. We want to see how we can continue to engage young people and engage even younger people in these different career opportunities, and what else we can do to prioritize the arts and culture community here in East Flatbush, Crown Heights, PLG, and all around Assembly District 43. So I wanted to mention that really quickly before I forgot. Doriel, if you have any final announcements, I'm excited to hear them, and we can just get on out of here.
Now I got to come up with final announcements. That's all right. Next time I'll have you better prepared. No, so it's really a pleasure to engage in these critical conversations about what happens outside of our four walls, of our home. Thanks for the opportunity to say, I'm just going to be straight up Brooklynite. We outside, right? We're outside. We're coming out more. And I'm really excited that we're coming out more. So a lot more people are just kind of going back to things that they did pre-Rona. And, being in community settings and helping people, there's still a beautiful opportunity of people just serving. And that's all that I know the member is trying to do, and that's to serve. And the office is open. The office is available to those who need to get information, whether it be for employment opportunities or, cultural expression, the little not pop-up shops, but the little like spoken word opportunities that I know that I've seen for some of your related aligned groups just feel so heartwarming. And I'm glad that it is within the district, that people who live in the district, they feel that their voice can be heard, and that what is on their heart, they can share with people who are around. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
I look forward to seeing all of you at the next Town Hall Thursday. We have to get a new hashtag now. And thank you to the member. Thank you to Naomi and the office who has allowed me to do this work with you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Doriel. We are excited to see you all next time.